Unintended consequences, long term. I think this is where a lot of these conversations are going, where a lot of this ordinance is put in place to protect residents and tenants, but in the long term, it potentially could, I hate to use the word backfire, but ultimately set in motion unintended consequences for tenants. Talk to me a little bit about what you think on that.
Yeah, I think it makes the screening process a lot more rigorous. Certainly can drive rental rates even higher to compensate for any contingencies that can potentially be the outcome of this ordinance. Because the landlord's got to, in a way, protect themselves in case a tenant decides to take them to court and run them dry. So you got to have to allocate some of the rent for and put it into a contingency plan, or call it an RLTO plan, in case that does come. So therefore, they're increasing the rents, and you are now requiring a much more, how can I say it, a much more strict application process. You may not bend the rules whatsoever, even if their credit rating is poor. Let's say they ran into some sort of issue in the past, but yet they built themselves out of it and they're working at a company, and certainly they're reporting that their gross gross income is sufficient to be able to cover the rents. Because of maybe their track history or their past track history of the poor credit rating, landlords may require a better credit rating because of that.
Would you, I thought about adding an RTLO line item on your pro formas for anybody buying in Cook County on the investment pro formas.
Yeah, absolutely. So my thought is that if investors are starting to, or will start to put in an RLTO contingency plan in their pro formas as they're underwriting these properties, it will eventually lower the value of these properties, which in turn will lower the assessed value, and therefore it would affect the taxing body for the county and for local. So, the schools are not going to get as much money as, is where your tax dollars would go towards, as an example. So I think monetarily that does affect, at a government level, the real estate taxes, because you're not going to get as much because the properties are not valued as high.
Well, then also, if you have to make sure you have an RTL contingency fund set aside, you might decide to sit on that money versus redo a stairwell or repave the parking lot, or you might push those type of things that are going to improve the property, improve the neighborhood down the road a little. Absolutely.
I mean, as a small owner operator, our margins are already thin as it is. So if some of these ordinances allow, especially when it comes to the judicial, distinctions on this ordinance, and I know a lot of my counterparts have mentioned the words shall versus may in this ordinance. It really should allow the judge at their discretion, and they're very intelligent people. They're a judge for a reason. That I think within the law, they definitely use a lot of common sense. And if this ordinance allows the potential tenant to get us in a technicality and an oversight at a very small level, that because of the technicality of it, can take us to court. We could potentially lose the case, pay court fees and their fees, plus whatever time that we lost as a landlord and our fees and income. It can add up to thousands of dollars for one unit for a small building where our margins are already thin.